Your 2-year-old daughter has the kind of smile that makes strangers stop and wave. Dark hair, wide eyes, the center of your world. And then, one summer morning, she's gone. There's a house on Hope Spring Drive in Orlando, Florida. Suburban, ordinary. The kind of place where neighbors wave from their driveways and kids ride bikes until the streetlights come on. The Anthony family lived there. George and Cindy Anthony, their son Lee, and their daughter Casey. Casey was 22 in the summer of 2008. Young, pretty, long dark hair, and a smile that came easy. She still lived at home with her parents, sharing her bedroom with her daughter Caylee. Caylee Marie Anthony was 2 years old, dark hair like her mother, big brown eyes that lit up when she laughed. The kind of child who made people stop and talk to her in grocery stores. Cindy Anthony, Caylee's grandmother, adored that little girl. She was the one who usually got Caylee ready in the mornings, who picked her out clothes, who took photos constantly because she couldn't help herself. George, Caylee's grandfather, was quieter. Former law enforcement. He'd worked as a deputy for years before moving into security. He loved that little girl too, but in a different way. Protective, watchful. And Casey? She was Caylee's mother. But the kind of mother she was, that's where the story gets complicated.
YouTube won't show you the next case unless you're subscribed. If you don't hit that button now, this is the last video of mine you'll see. And the next case is even crazier than this one. So hit subscribe, then drop a comment telling me where you're watching from.
911, what's your emergency? I found out my granddaughter has been sick and she has been missing for a month. Her mother finally admitted that she's been missing. I need to find her.
Casey had gotten pregnant when she was 19. She never told anyone who the father was. Not her parents, not her friends. She'd mentioned a few names over the years, said it was a boy she'd dated briefly, then said it was someone else. The story changed depending on who was asking. Her parents were upset at first, but when Caylee was born in August 2005, they fell in love with her, Cindy especially. She took over, changed diapers, did night feedings, took Caylee to the pediatrician. She'd come home from her job as a nurse and immediately reach for her granddaughter. Casey led her. On the surface, Casey looked like she was trying. She posted photos of Caylee on MySpace with captions like "My Everything" and "Best Friend." She took Caylee to the park, to her friends' houses. She seemed affectionate, but people close to the family noticed things. Casey didn't have a job, but she'd leave the house every morning like she did. She told her parents she worked at Universal Studios as an event coordinator. She had co-workers she'd talk about, a boss named Jeff. She even brought home what looked like work papers. But it wasn't true, none of it. Casey had worked at Universal years earlier, briefly, but she quitted. She never got another job. She just left the house, went to friends' apartments, hung out, came home. Her parents didn't know. Cindy handled the bills, handled Caylee's needs. George went to work and came home tired. Casey floated somewhere in between, always busy with something they couldn't quite pin down. There were arguments, though. Cindy and Casey fought often. About responsibility, about Casey's priorities, about where Casey was going at night and who she was with. Casey would get defensive. She'd grab Caylee and leave for a few days. Stay with a boyfriend, with a friend. Then she'd come back, and things would settle. Until they didn't.
Hello? Yes. Hi. Can you tell me a little bit what's going on? My daughter's been missing for the last 31 days. Who has her? Do you have a name? Her name is Zanny Fernandez Gonzalez.
Father's Day. Cindy's brother was hosting a gathering at his house. The family went. Caylee was there, running around, playing in the pool with her great-grandfather. You can hear her little voice. But that afternoon things weren't good between Cindy and Casey. Cindy had discovered something. Casey had been stealing money from her grandparents, checks forged from Cindy's account, hundreds of dollars. Cindy was furious. On the drive home, she told Casey she was done, that she might seek custody of Caylee, that Casey needed to grow up or get out. Casey didn't say much. She just stared out the window. That night, back at the house, neighbors heard shouting. Loud voices coming from the Anthony home. George wasn't there. He was working a night shift. But Cindy and Casey were inside, and whatever was said was very bad. The next morning, June 16th, Casey left the house with Caylee. Cindy thought they'd be back by dinner. Maybe staying with a friend for the night, like Casey had done before. But this time, Casey didn't come back. Casey drove to her boyfriend's apartment. His name was Tony Lazaro. He was young, 20, good-looking, worked as a club promoter, lived with roommates near the University of Central Florida. She'd been seeing him for a few weeks. Nothing serious yet, but she liked him, and he liked her. Casey showed up at his door that morning with a bag of clothes. No Caylee. Tony asked where her daughter was. Casey said Caylee was with the nanny, that she'd be staying there for a bit while Casey figured some things out. Tony didn't think much of it. Casey had mentioned a nanny before. A woman she called Zanny said she'd been watching Caylee for years. So Casey stayed. She slept over, went to parties with Tony, went to clubs, laid by the pool. His roommates noticed she seemed light, like a weight had been lifted. She was laughing, dancing, drinking, acting like a college kid with no responsibilities. One of Tony's roommates, a guy named Clint, thought it was strange that Casey never called to check on Caylee. Never seemed worried, but he didn't say anything. It wasn't his place. Days went by, then a week, then two. Cindy kept calling, kept texting. "Where are you? Where's Caylee? Bring her home." Casey would respond with short answers. "We're fine. At the beach. Caylee's with Zanny. I'll bring her by soon." On July 2nd, 2 weeks after leaving home, Casey went to a tattoo parlor. She got the words Bella Vita tattooed on her left shoulder. Beautiful life in Italian. The tattoo artist asked what it meant. Casey smiled and said she was starting fresh, a new chapter, she said. She seemed so excited. That same week, Tony's roommates started noticing a smell in Casey's car, a white Pontiac Sunfire she'd been driving. It was bad, really bad. Casey said she'd hit a squirrel, that it must have gotten stuck under the car. She sprayed perfume, put dryer sheets in the vents. But the smell didn't go away. On July 15th, something else happened. Casey's car was found abandoned in a parking lot near a check cashing place. It had been towed. The tow yard tried calling the registered owner, Zanny Anthony. Cindy didn't get the message right away, but George did. He went to pick up the car. When the tow yard manager opened the trunk, George stepped back. The smell hit him immediately. He'd been in law enforcement. He knew that smell. But when they looked inside, all they saw was a bag of trash, some clothes and paper towels. George drove the car home in silence. He didn't say much to Cindy when he got there, just told her they needed to find Casey. Cindy tried calling Casey all day. Finally, late that night, Casey picked up. Cindy didn't waste time. "Where's Caylee?" "Casey." "Then she is with Zanny." That she'd been with her for weeks. Cindy's voice got louder. "Casey, where's my granddaughter?" Then Casey said something that made Cindy's stomach drop. "I don't know." Cindy's hand started shaking. "What do you mean you don't know?" "I haven't seen her in 31 days. Zanny took her. Cindy hung up. She got in her car. She drove to Tony's apartment and dragged Casey out by the arm. They drove home. Cindy called the police from the car. The 911 operator answered. Cindy was crying, yelling. "My granddaughter's been missing for 31 days. My daughter finally admitted it. I found her, but I can't find my granddaughter." The operator asked to speak to Casey. Casey got on the phone. She told the operator she'd been looking for Caylee herself, that she'd been conducting her own investigation, that she didn't want to involve the police because she was scared. The operator asked who took Caylee. Casey said, "The nanny." "What's the nanny's name?" "Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez." "Where does she live?" "I don't know." "You don't know where your nanny lives?" "She moves around a lot." The operator paused, then asked the question everyone would be asking for months. "Why didn't you call the police 31 days ago?" Casey didn't have an answer. The Orange County Sheriff's Office responded that night. A detective named Yuri Melich took the case. He sat down with Casey at the Anthony house and asked her to walk him through what happened. Casey explained. She said she'd dropped Caylee off at the Sawgrass Apartments on June 16th. Zanny lived there. Casey had been using her as a babysitter for over a year. She said she'd been calling Zanny for weeks. She went to the apartment. No one was there. Detective Melich wrote everything down. Then he asked Casey to take him to the apartment. They drove to Sawgrass. Casey led him to a unit. The door was locked. The apartment was vacant. Melich checked with the leasing office. No one named Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez had ever lived there. Casey looked confused, said maybe she had the wrong unit. They went back to the station. Melich asked more questions. Where do you work? Universal Studios as an event coordinator. Who's your supervisor? Jeff Hopkins. Can we go talk to him? Sure. The next day, Melich and other detectives drove with Casey to Universal. She led them through the parking lot, through the gates, down hallways. Then she stopped. She turned around. I don't actually work here anymore. The detectives stared at her. You lied. Casey nodded. She started crying. I'm sorry, I was scared. They brought her back to the station. This time the questions were harder. Where's Caylee? I don't know. Did someone take her? Yes, Zanny. Zanny doesn't exist, Casey. She does. Then where is she? Detective Melich leaned forward. Is Caylee alive? Casey's face crumpled. I don't know. That night, July 16th, 2008, Caylee Anthony was arrested for lying to the law enforcement, for filing a false report. She was taken to the Orange County Jail. Caylee was still missing. The case exploded overnight. A missing 2-year-old and a mother who waited 31 days to report it. News vans parked outside the Anthony home. Reporters camped on the lawn. Helicopters circled overhead. Cindy and George were devastated. They went on national television begging for information, begging for Caylee to be returned. Cindy believed Casey's story. She told reporters that someone had taken Caylee, that Casey had been trying to find her on her own, that Casey was a good mother who'd made mistakes but would never hurt her child. Photos of Casey surfaced, photos from those 31 days. Casey at a nightclub, Casey at a hot body contest, Casey grinding on Tony, smiling, drinking, no sign of distress, no sign of a mother searching for her missing child. People got angry. Casey sat in jail, watching it unfold on the news. She wrote letters her friends to Tony. She didn't write much about Caylee. Mostly she complained about jail, about missing people, about being bored. Meanwhile, investigators kept searching. They brought in cadaver dogs. The dogs alerted on Casey's car, on the trunk. The smell was still there, faint but present. They tested the trunk, found evidence of decomposition. They found hair that matched Caylee's. A utility worker named Roy Kronk was clearing brush near a wooded area off Suburban Drive, not far from the Anthony home. He saw something, a bag, half buried in mud and leaves. He called it in. Police arrived. They searched the area carefully. Inside the bag was a small skull, duct tape across the mouth area, tiny bones, a child's remains, clothing nearby, a shirt that said, "Big trouble comes small." It was Caylee. She'd been there the whole time. The medical examiner couldn't determine the cause of death. The body was too decomposed, but the duct tape, that told a story. 3 pieces of duct tape across the nose and mouth area of a 2-year-old child. That same day, Casey was charged with first-degree murder. The trial began in May 2011, almost 3 years after Caylee disappeared. The prosecution's case was circumstantial. They had no murder weapon, no confession, no witnesses. But they had evidence: the cadaver dogs, the decomposition in the trunk, the 31 days of lies, the internet searches. Because investigators had found something else: Casey's computer. On June 16th, the day Caylee disappeared, someone had searched for chloroform 84 times, searched for how to make chloroform, searched for neck breaking. The prosecution argued that Casey had used chloroform to sedate Caylee, that she suffocated her with duct tape, then she'd put her in the trunk of the car, and that when the smell became unbearable, she'd dumped her in the woods. Why? Because Caylee was in the way. Casey wanted freedom, wanted to party, wanted to be with Tony without the responsibility of a child. The motive was simple. The defense, led by attorney Jose Baez, had a different story. On the first day of trial, Baez stood up and said something that shocked the courtroom. Caylee was not murdered. Caylee drowned in the family pool on June 16th. It was an accident. The courtroom gasped. Baez went on. He said George had been molesting Casey since she was 8 years old, that Casey had learned to lie as a survival mechanism, that when Caylee drowned, George took over, told Casey to stay quiet, disposed of the body. He offered no proof, no evidence, just a story, but it was enough to create doubt. George Anthony took the stand. He cried, saying he loved his granddaughter, that he would have done anything to save her. Cindy testified too. She said she was the one who'd made the chloroform searches, that she'd been looking up chlorophyll for a work project. Experts disputed her testimony. The timeline didn't match, but Cindy didn't back down. Lee Anthony, Casey's brother, testified. He was emotional, talked about how Casey had lied to him for years, how she'd stolen from him, how she'd kept him away from Caylee during those 31 days. But when the defense asked if he believed George had molested Casey, he paused. "I don't know," he said. The jury watched it all for 6 weeks. They saw photos of Caylee, smiling, alive. They saw the remains, the duct tape, the evidence, and they saw Casey sitting at the defense table, taking notes, whispering to her lawyers. She never testified, never explained, never told her side of the story. On July 5th, 2011, the jury came back with a verdict. The courtroom was packed. Media from around the world waited outside. The judge asked the foreperson to read the verdict. On the count of first-degree murder, not guilty. The courtroom erupted. People screamed, cried. One woman fainted. The judge banged the gavel. "Order!" The foreperson continued. On the count of aggravated child abuse, not guilty. On the count of aggravated manslaughter of a child, not guilty. Casey started crying, then Jose Baez put his arm around her. The only counts she was found guilty on were 4 misdemeanor counts of lying to law enforcement. She'd already served nearly 3 years in jail awaiting trial. With time served and good behavior, she was released on July 17, 2011. She walked out of jail wearing a pink shirt, got into a private car, and disappeared. The verdict was called the most controversial in modern American history. People couldn't understand it. How could a jury look at all that evidence and say not guilty? One juror later explained. He said they believed Casey was involved, that she probably knew what happened, but the prosecution hadn't proven murder beyond a reasonable doubt. They didn't know how Caylee died. They didn't have a timeline. They didn't have a confession. The defense had planted just enough doubt: the drowning story, George's possible involvement, the lack of physical evidence tying Casey directly to the death. It was enough. But the public didn't accept it. Caylee Anthony became one of the most hated women in America. She couldn't go anywhere without being recognized. She lived her life hiding, changed her name, moved constantly. Her parents never fully recovered. George and Cindy stayed married, but their relationship was damaged. They barely spoke to Casey after the trial. In later interviews, Cindy still defended her daughter, said she believed the drowning story, said Casey was a victim too. George was less certain. He said he didn't know what happened, but he knew his granddaughter was gone. If you take a step back to examine this case, there are questions that never got answered. If Caylee drowned, why did Casey search for chloroform? If it was an accident, why the duct tape? Why did Casey party for 31 days if her daughter was dead? The defense's story had holes, big ones, but so did the prosecution's. No one knows exactly what happened on June 16, 2008. What we do know is this: Caylee Marie Anthony was 2 years old. She loved her grandfather. She loved the pool. And on a summer morning in Florida, her life ended. Someone knows what happened. Someone was there. But the truth, the whole truth, may have been buried with Caylee in those woods. Caylee Anthony lives in South Florida. She stays out of the public eye mostly, works for a private investigator who supported her during the trial. She gave one major interview in 2017, spoke to the Associated Press. She said she didn't know how Caylee died. Said she still believes her daughter drowned. Said she's never fully remembered what happened that day because of trauma. Caylee Anthony looked like a normal young mother, smiled in photos, kissed her daughter goodnight, posted about how much she loved being a mom. But somewhere along the way, something broke. Maybe it was the pressure of motherhood. Maybe it was something darker, something we can't understand. Whatever it was, it led to 31 days of silence and a little girl who never got to grow up. Caylee deserved better. She deserved a mother who protected her, who called for help, who did everything possible to keep her safe. Instead, she got 31 days of nothing, and that silence, that choice to stay quiet while a child was missing, tells you everything you need to know. If you're a mother watching this, or a grandmother, or someone who loves a child, you already know. You would have called, immediately, desperately. You would have torn the world apart looking, because that's what love does. And the absence of that response, that basic instinct, is the most damning evidence of all. Caylee Marie Anthony was born on August 9, 2005. She died sometime in June 2008. She was 2 years old. She deserved so much more. I'll see you in the next video.